Netflix executives must have sat down in a boardroom and thought, how can we make our reality television lineup more toxic? Let's bring singles that were the most toxic from the other shows into one show. Yeah. What's going on, everyone? James here with another real recap and review of a new Netflix reality television show with some familiar faces. That's right, today we're talking all about Perfect Match. A huge thank you to Netflix for giving me the chance to watch this early for review, guys. Episodes 1 through 4 are now streaming, but week 2, right? February 21st, we're talking all about episodes 5 through 8, so get subscribed and stay on the channel, because if you haven't seen my coverage of Love is Blind and The Ultimatum and The Circle, all I gotta say is you're in for a good time. So if you're a fan, if you've watched Perfect Match, we'll get into some spoiler talk, but we'll start with spoiler-free topics, because there are some things I want to talk about here that work and some things that just really don't work about Perfect Match. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the series, this brings together single stars of Netflix's unscripted series like Love is Blind, The Ultimatum, Too Hot to Handle, The Mole, and more to a tropical paradise in an attempt to find love. As they compete to form relationships, the most compatible couples will play matchmaker, breaking up other couples and sending them on dates with brand new singles they'll invite to the villa. And this is hosted by Nick Lachey. Vanessa Lachey is not present, and it's directed by Anthony Gonzales. But you're not here to talk about, well, who's gonna direct what and who's hosting who. But guys, this is insane. So there's some moments in this show that have been blowing my mind, but don't let me do all the talking, right? Get loud in the comments below and let me know your thoughts so far in episodes 1 through 4, and hit the thumbs up button again if you love content like this, because I'm back in my bag talking about Netflix reality TV shows. Seriously, thank you guys for your support. God bless y'all. Okay, so let's get into the spoiler-free discussion. Now, there are time codes below in case you don't care about the spoiler-free stuff and you want to hear me spoil everything. You can skip right ahead, but if not, strap in, because again, we got some things to talk about. Let's begin with this. If you're a fan of at least one of these Netflix reality TV shows, you'll find yourself having a lot more fun with Perfect Match. If this is your very first Netflix reality TV show, you're not going to have, I think, even half the amount of fun that I and so many of you others have, because diehard fans will recognize some of these personalities, like Joey. You know, you got different people here that just bring luggage with them, and some people that I am actually being introduced to for the very first time. But I can tell they were a little toxic on the other seasons or other shows as well. But I think a lot of your relatability to some of these characters will depend truly on whether or not you are a fan of Too Hot to Handle or even The Circle. So there are some things here where you're gonna have to have prior knowledge before hopping into Perfect Match. And honestly, I enjoyed seeing the messiness of all of these conflicting personalities across the board, because again, there are some contestants here that, they're bringing some luggage with them. I'm looking at you, Francesca, and I'm looking at you, Joey, apparently. I didn't know Joey was like that, if you know what I mean. But it is really cool to see some of these contestants come back. You got Shane in the building. Y'all know Shane from Love is Blind. And, yep, yeah, still Shane from Love is Blind. But there are so many instances where I just thought, man, it's kind of cool that they're bringing everyone together, and pretty smart of Netflix to do that as well. Now, I'll be honest, the first batch of episodes takes a little bit to get going. Episodes 3 and 4 really are the juiciest in terms of drama, but I wasn't really impressed with the first 2 episodes. I also was getting used to the rules of these challenges. Some of them are a little complex, and even the game itself is a little foggy at first. I think they could have done a better job at breaking down the complexity of Perfect Match, but when you get to episodes 3 and 4, at least for me, I was able to really understand the game and the matchmaking, and I kind of understood also the strategies that these matchmakers were really trying to utilize. You know who I'm talking about too, picking a date for themselves. But on a technical note, thank goodness the music isn't too unbearable compared to Love is Blind Season 3. Now, if you guys forgot, and you haven't watched my recaps and reviews for Love is Blind Season 3, the music was too loud, it was overbearing, and it actually distracted from scenes that otherwise could have been just silence, or just a quieter bit of music composition in the background. Here in Perfect Match, they do a better job, and honestly, there are some dramatic elements that play out in the boardroom that really made sense, and I'm happy that it did. They make these boardroom scenes so over the top with presentation, but it really works for me. Now, I will say one thing that I am totally against so far through 4 episodes, it really is these interviews that they use, the one-on-one sit-down interviews that they splice in between moments. Reality TV shows always do this, so fans are not unfamiliar with this technique, but the way they film it is terrible to me. There's this really weird slow pan to the left or to the right, and there's this object that's in the foreground that is clearly not in focus, and well, the subject is in focus, but it is way too distracting. It's sometimes over half of their face, and you're thinking, I just want to focus on what they're saying. But you can't when you have an object in front of their mouth, in front of their eyes, and cutting off half of their face. But I can't tell you that I wasn't entertained with the first 4 episodes. I actually really enjoyed so far what we've gotten, and it made me want to press play on episode 5 right away. But I had to record this review first. I'm trying to stay honest with y'all. I like it. I think Perfect Match is dumb. Yes, but is it entertaining enough to really hold attention? Yes, and I say that because episodes 3 and 4 were the strongest episodes. Back to back, it was like fire. Momentum was going. The drama was at its highest, right? So you have a lot of things going in this show's favor. I will tell you though, episodes 1, episode 2, not great, y'all. Like, those are 2 episodes where I felt like maybe this show was really just set up for failure, and I would have been honest and told you if it was, but again, episodes 3 and 4 this week, really worth your time. But that's all I can say for the spoiler-free section of Perfect Match. So if you're a fan of these previous Netflix reality TV shows, in my opinion, this is must-watch TV for you. If you're not, or maybe if you're not really committed and you've missed a few seasons, you might be a little lost. So your mileage will vary. But guys, we got to get into the spoiler discussion because I'm grabbing this microphone right now. There's some tomfoolery going on that we are going to call out, some snakish behavior. Of course, we're calling out snakish behavior whenever we can. But guys, week 1 is nuts. Again, your final warning, this is the spoiler section. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about right now where we're at by the end of week 1, and then we'll talk about how we got there. So the current matches by the end of episode 4 are as follows. You have Izzy and Shane. Just maybe think Izzy was not feeling Shane, Izzy being one of the newer entrants into this contest, right, into the house. She kind of gravitated towards Shane, but I think she really wanted Nick after all, so it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But our next match that is currently together is Ines and Nick. Now, we've been talking a lot about Nick lately, right? But Nick, honestly, started off, and we'll get there, but Nick started off paired up with Savannah for purely strategic reasons, and I thought this was doomed to fail. But, yeah, Nick told Savannah about him and Ines, and Savannah, well, let's just say she's a snake, because she told Nick she just wants to be with him, but it's because she just wants to stay in the house and tries to she wants to try and like get with Dom. I don't know what this fascination is with her and Dom, or her for Dom, because Dom clearly does not like Savannah, and neither does Francesca. We'll talk about that too. But I just think Savannah's such a snake. You can read through her lies, but I'm glad Nick is moving on from Savannah. Like, clearly he does not care. However, Nick also ain't no saint, moving on from Ines like that to pursue Izzy. So Izzy and Nick clearly are most likely set up to be together and be a match. But Nick leaving Ines like that it's kind of sad for Ines. Alright, let's move on from wishy-washy Nick and snakish Savannah and talk about Carousel and Joey. So Carousel is an interesting subject, and so is Joey. They've clearly had a history coming into this, and I know we'll touch up on this soon, but I didn't know that Joey and Carousel were at the stage where maybe Joey could have said I love you. Carousel was definitely in love with Joey, and then Joey was very non-committal, so there was a lot going on between them before coming into the house for Perfect Match. But Carousel is kind of pushing the buttons of Joey, doing things like kissing Nick during that dare challenge. It wasn't truth or dare, I think it was just strictly dare that they were playing. And you gotta imagine Joey feels some type of way. I mean, he feels, I think at this point, pretty secure, but there's always that thought lingering in the back of his mind, like, well, Carousel did things with, I think it was Chase, right? When Chase got introduced into the house and they went on that blind date. So I don't know, y'all, it's interesting. Their dynamic's probably one you're gonna want to keep your eyes out for, because I don't actually know if they're gonna make it to the end with all of these challenges. And then there's Georgia and Chase. Both are relatively new to the house. Chase, though, has some experience in being a snake. I'm serious, y'all. Chase is, that boy is always flip-flopping. I don't know, like, he's playing the game, I get it, but he's hurting some people's feelings in the process. Maybe that's me because I'm an empath. I'm like, Chase, can we not do this? Can you maybe have a conversation with the person that you're currently matched with before you move on? But no, he clearly is playing women in this house, and I hope the women, they kind of like smarten up and see, okay, we gotta kind of go against Chase. And I think there are some people that are definitely against Chase. I think Carousel is one of them, clearly, after the game about the blind kisses. That was very interesting. But Chase seems to think Francesca and Dom are threatened by both Georgia and Chase, and I just genuinely don't think Georgia and Chase have anything anyway, so I have no idea what Chase is on. But the boy's clearly tripping. So let's move on to the last couple that is currently matched, and that is Francesca and Dom. Probably the most interesting couple so far through 4 episodes of Perfect Match. Now, I do respect Dom for not wanting to participate in the dare game when everyone thought that maybe it was a harmless game, but I mean, to kiss other people, to do things that are kind of risque with other women, he definitely wasn't about that. If anything, he's so focused on Francesca. I kind of was hoping Francesca would be okay with that. Instead, it was like she was disappointed in him. And I don't know if that was the response I expected from Francesca, because she told us, the audience, that she's clearly looking to change. Coming from her show, she, well, was played by a guy who just wanted her for physical reasons, if you catch my drift. So Francesca and Dom had been struggling for a date, and when they finally went on one by the end of week 1, it was kind of awkward, just not in a bad way. So maybe whatever they were, kind of working through, it's being shed, right? They're just like, you know what, we're at a place in our lives where we can date each other. Francesca is hopefully maturing. I don't know how quickly she's maturing, but maybe she'll get there. She's showing signs. And Dom is clearly head over heels for her. So, man, I hope they stay together. Kind of rooting for them. We got to talk about now how we got here, right? We got to talk about how we even got to these current matches in the current boardroom situation. So I told you I'm rooting for Francesca and Dom, right? Part of me is thinking, like, I'm rooting for them, but like Francesca's like, I don't know, is she mature? Is she playing up the dramatics here? I don't know. But we did get some night 1 matches, and some of them are still together, like Joey and Carousel, right? And Francesca and Dom. But then there are some that started off not how I thought they would, and they definitely did not finish together. So you have Ines and Shane. They were not into each other, not sleeping in the same bed, which I get it, honestly. Never really met this person before, and if you did, you don't know them well enough to play footsies in the night. So you also have Savannah and Nick, who were there again for purely strategic reasons, but they were paired together not because they wanted to date one another, but because they wanted to win games. And then you have Anne-Sophie and Zay. Notice how I didn't mention Anne-Sophie and Zay in the current matches. I guess you could use process of elimination to know that they were not making the cut, but Zay is the same. I have a note here. Zay is being Zay from the Ultimatum. And if you remember my coverage of the Ultimatum, I wasn't the biggest fan of Zay. I don't know, I just kind of like argumentative, very immature, can't hold a conversation and really properly express his feelings. That last point though could be just something repressed from his past, so I was hoping he'd had worked over it by this point, and he just seems like he's the same, and I'm like, bruh, you gotta grow. But Anne-Sophie was hilarious to me. She was about ready to move on after night 1 with Zay. She wasn't having it. And then there was our very first game that was really fun. Fact or cap. I guess do I have to explain what cap means? No, y'all know what cap means. Are you capping or are you telling the truth? And it was really cool. They had 2 buckets and everything. If your partner guessed correctly, you wouldn't get water splashed on you, but if you did guess incorrectly, I think water would be splashed on you or something like that. But Joey and Carousel, let's just say they did not start this game off great, because the question was, is your partner still hung up on his ex? And I think Carousel said false or cap or something like that. And well, it's revealed that Joey's still hung up on his ex. So I almost wonder if that lingering thought manifests itself later in Carousel's mind. But we will see, I guess. Ines and Shane played. Francesca and Dom, of course, played. And Francesca called Joey annoying. So clearly Joey's not making many friends with the women in the house outside of Carousel. But I didn't really think Francesca's sexident story wasn't great. It's kind of disgusting, actually. I'm not going to explain it. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And it was gross. Just thank God I wasn't eating at the time. So then you have Savannah and Nick, who won this challenge because, I mean, I guess they just, they were plotting to win instead of getting to know one another. So I guess they were strategically positioning themselves for that. They go on their first date, and honestly, guys, romantically, there was nothing there. So you knew from the jump that Savannah, Snake, Nick, wishy-washy, they're not working out together. And, well, they clearly didn't. Now, the first boardroom of the night was interesting. I was a little lost, but I kind of got the hang of it. Like I said, as we got closer to episode 3, Savannah and Nick had to pick 2 guys. So they chose Chase, who was going to be put on a blind date with Carousel, and then Calvin put on a blind date with Aunt Sophie. So let's talk about Aunt Sophie and Calvin. Aunt Sophie, like we mentioned, not feeling Zay, but she wasn't feeling Calvin either, so... oh man, Aunt Sophie's like, I don't like either of these choices, you know? So having a convo with Calvin, it was interesting because you could tell gradually she was just not feeling it. But on the other hand, Carousel and Chase, at this point, Carousel's very mad, right, at Joey. So Chase took advantage, saw that she was, you know, kind of feeling him a little bit physically, maybe too much, because Carousel was making some comments off screen. I'm like, girl, relax, like, chill. But yeah, they kissed each other. They were getting into it, you know what I mean? But to be honest, I think this might have been more of a ploy by Carousel to make Joey jealous. So it's just very interesting to see the different strategies that these couples play against one another. So yeah, it was definitely a very interesting boardroom moment. So our next matches after the boardroom moment were a little bit different than what you might have expected. We had Shane and Ines, Francesca and Dom, and at this point, of course, Savannah wanted to break up Dom and Francesca, can't stand her, moving on. Nick and Savannah, Carousel and Joey, and then Aunt Sophie and Chase. Boy, I even forgot that Aunt Sophie and Chase matched up at one point, but again, nothing there. Do want to scale back though and talk about Carousel and Joey, because Carousel vented to Joey not too long before the match, and it's interesting here. For me, Carousel is complaining to Joey about not being jealous, and then later on in the show, she kind of is very hypocritical, and she's okay with him not being jealous. So I'm like, girl, what do you want out of your partner? It's very interesting to me. But Carousel and Joey, I guess you could say they're 2 peas in a pod. So you know what that means, y'all. We have our first eliminations of week 1, and that is Calvin and it's Zay. So goodbye, Calvin and Zay. Aunt Sophie left y'all in the dust. Zay can't win for losing. Neither can Calvin. Both of them just not doing great on any of these Netflix reality shows. So we'll see them in season 2 of Perfect Match, won't we? But now we're going to move on to our next game, and I do have some comments about this one. It's the kissing game. Guys, it went on for far too long. It dragged. It was too much. They lingered on this game for so long, and I was losing brain cells. And I'm thinking to myself, guys, why are we doing this? This is why you hire a good editor. It's one thing that I couldn't really talk about without giving an example earlier, but the editing is sometimes so off here. And the kissing game really shows that this is a segment that needed to be sped up, so maybe you simplify the rules a little bit, or you cut around the edges, bro, and use some flashback scenes every now and then, like a little montage or something, while they're giving and revealing their scores. You know what? Speaking of giving and revealing scores, we might as well just go down the list and talk about how they rated their kiss. Of course, they're blindfolded, right? Both the men and the women are blindfolded, so they're rating their kiss from a scale of 1 to 10, and some of these get juicy. So let's start with Savannah and Nick. They actually rated their kisses together a 9, which is interesting. And at this point, I think Nick is even probably considering maybe pursuing Savannah, but she clearly doesn't want him. Then you have Savannah and Chase. Savannah rated it a 7, but Chase rated it a 3. I fell out of my seat. It's like, girl, that's what you get. Sorry. And then there's Francesca and Nick. So Francesca rated her kiss with Nick a 9, and Nick rated his kiss with Francesca an 8. That's a pretty high score. Keep your eye on Nick here. That's 2 9s for Nick so far. And then you have Francesca and Dom, who were surprisingly voted least compatible together. Francesca rated her kiss with Dom an 8. Dom, her kiss with Francesca a 9. So something is a little bit up with them. And at this point, I think they were hoping for a moment to be more physical, maybe over a date, and they hadn't got it yet at this point. And then there's Carousel and Chase. So this was crazy. What a moment this was. Carousel rated her kiss with Chase a 9, a whole 9. So Joey's probably thinking, homie, get off my girl. But then you had Chase. He is an idiot. He lied. He rated his kiss with Carousel a 1 because he claimed that he chipped his tooth. You could see when he said he chipped his tooth that he didn't chip his tooth. He's a liar. But everyone believed it. I don't know how. I mean, of course, I think Chase has some sort of animosity against Carousel because Carousel and him had that blind date and she left him in the dust, and Chase is like, well, I don't like Joey. I'm a dog. I don't like Carousel either. So like that was a ploy to avoid having Carousel and Joey go on a date together. So just terrible. And then Carousel and Joey ended up actually rating each other a 10. So you would think they're the most compatible, right? Well, not exactly. And the way that they added all these numbers up is beyond me, but we'll get there. Then you have Ines and Dom. Ines rated her kiss with Dom an 8, and it was the longest kiss. That was long. All right, they were thinking about their future together in that kiss at that point. And then Dom rated his kiss with Ines a 10, which was higher than Francesca's score. Yeah, there was a lot of pettiness in this game, y'all. So we have Ines and Nick together. Ines rated her kiss with Nick a 9, and Nick his kiss with Ines a 10. So I was thinking maybe they got something going on. Well, sort of. Ines and Shane, their kisses, I'm like, dang, this is pretty high too. Ines 10, Shane 9, and I'm thinking, mamma mia, we got so much drama here. And I mean, the math wasn't mathing for me in my head, so I just stopped counting at this point. But the most compatible couple in terms of kiss ratings were Chase and Anne-Sophie. Anne-Sophie rated Chase a 10, Chase rated Anne-Sophie a 10, so there was definitely compatibility. I guess it really favored Chase because of the high ratings he was getting, and Anne-Sophie, just good for Anne-Sophie, I guess. But man, that was pretty wild. So of course they win, so they get a date together. But I do want to check in with our current matches, because before we get to boardroom number 2, we got to talk about where we're at. You know, I think at this point we're probably on episode 3-ish, maybe end of 2, beginning of 3. So let's talk about our current matchup to this point. Shane and Ines. Savannah and Anne-Sophie are trying to tell Ines to speak with Nick instead of Shane, so they're trying to sabotage their relationship. In a way, I do feel bad for Shane, but Shane doesn't like Chase at all, thinking Chase is trying to steal Ines, or, you know, kind of impede on his potential for finding love in the house. But Shane and Ines eventually hit a roadblock, and Ines says, I want a combo with Nick. So Ines and Nick have a combo. She said she would end up leaving if she had to choose Shane. So she said, listen, my options, they're not that limited, but they better not be with Shane. And then Shane and Izzy had a conversation. Izzy, a newcomer in the house at this point. Shane said that he's more into Izzy than Ines. Oof. What a mess. What a mess. So of course, after the kissing game and our 2 winners being Anne-Sophie and Chase, we got a new boardroom situation, y'all. Boardroom number 2, and they're bringing in 2 new girls, right? So we got Izzy, a newcomer into the house, being put up on a blind date with Nick. And yeah, they kissed on their blind date. Ooh, Nick is carrying those 10s everywhere with him, I guess, in terms of his kiss rating. And then you got Georgia coming into the house and pairing up with Chase. But Chase is a bit of a BSer because he's kind of, at this point, showing his true colors. That man is in this for the game. He's a player. All right, Chase is a player. We don't like Chase. So our next matches are now Izzy and Shane, because Shane and Izzy had a conversation after Ines left Shane to go talk to Nick. So this was a very interesting and peculiar situation, because you thought that both of them were solid, but Izzy missed Nick during that side game they had, the dare game. So it adds, again, fuel to the fire, because Shane is mad. So Shane wants to leave, right? So the next match is Ines and Nick. And yeah, like we talked about earlier, I really don't understand why Nick is so wishy-washy here. I think he has a good thing with Ines, but he's ruining it. He really is. And I know that for a fact because he moved on to pursue Izzy. So what a mess. What a mess. Poor Ines. That's not a rhyme I came up with prior to this video, just saying. So Carousel and Joey, of course, still together. Georgia and Chase, not much there, together. Francesca and Dom, very interesting pairing, especially after we get into what we're about to talk about. But before we get there, we need to talk about 2 more eliminations, and that's Savannah, Bye Girl, and Anne-Sophie. I'm kind of sad about that. Yeah, I mean, Anne-Sophie just, it didn't feel like she fit within the realm of this game. It didn't work out. But Savannah, goodbye. I did not like Savannah. She was trying so hard to come for Francesca and Dom, and it didn't work out because Francesca got her together, read her like a book. Francesca told Dom, you better not speak to that snake. You better not even entertain her, because I will cut you. And I'm glad Dom listened. Yeah, that would have been something. So let's talk about now the bidding tasks challenge, which was very interesting as well, because these men couldn't name most countries on a blank map. Goodness gracious. I'm serious, y'all. I understand reality TV. It attracts a certain breed of contestants, especially when it comes to the men. But how do y'all not know how to name countries on a blank map? I don't know what happened. I think was it Dom? That was like thinking Alaska was a country. I'm like, homie, stop. But it ended up being the winners were Dom and Francesca. So good for them. They were doing the whole like untie the knot thing and stuff. So that was good for them. They got a date. I mean, they've been waiting for that for a while. And like I mentioned earlier, Francesca and Dom's date was awkward, but not really in a bad way. They're just still kind of getting to know each other, but also Dom doesn't want to push the physical stuff right away. I believe they did share a kiss in this moment, like on this date or maybe a little bit afterwards, but Dom wants to slow Francesca's roll because Francesca is willing and able apparently, but Dom is like, I want this to be different from my other relationships. So good for you, Dom. Okay, now here's what I really wanted to talk about in terms of Francesca. Guys, we got a boardroom number 3 situation. We got Francesca and Dom picking 2 new guys. Bartiste comes in the house and they're pairing him up with Ines. And if you remember Bartiste from Love is Blind, I wasn't a fan. But then you got Damien coming into the house and going on a date with Francesca. Bro, what is going on? At this point, Dom is crying, revealing to the rest of the house that Francesca chose Damien to come in on a blind date with her. And it's because Francesca and Damien have a past together, and I forgot about that. But man, when it was revealed and flashbacks happened, I'm thinking, mamma mia, Francesca, you might be a snake. So she's like half a snake right now, because I think she's playing Dom. She's playing our boy Dom, and that's not cool. Because guys, it's teasing that Francesca and Dom are going to end up together. I'm sorry, Damien, and Dom is going to be left in the dust. Damien, though, Damien is, I don't know about Damien. I remember him, you know, from many years ago, and I always thought that Damien wasn't ready for a relationship, and him and Francesca, they did something before their show, y'all. I know that they were more than just friends, okay? You know, remember that Usher song, Lovers and Friends? Or, yeah, Lovers and Friends, that's how it goes, okay. I'm going to be honest, they were both lovers and friends. So maybe Savannah was right after all about Francesca? What am I even saying? Yeah, that's insane to even think about, but that's where we're at right now. Week 1 got crazy in episodes 3 and 4. All that juicy stuff happened in 3 and 4. 1 and 2 were okay, but 3 and 4 is where the drama was at. So guys, there you have it. Like I mentioned, our current matches are in shambles right now, and they leave us on a cliffhanger for episode 5 for week 2 with Francesca, Damien, Dom, and Francesca's future. There's a love square, triangle, whatever going on there. And then Ines and Bartiste, I don't see that happening, okay? I actually don't even see Bartiste staying with Ines right after their blind date once he gets to the house, because we know how he was with Raven. I don't forget, I got a big brain and a big head. But that's besides the point. So guys, there you have it. That's my real review and recap of week 1 for Perfect Match on Netflix. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments when you stream it this week, because it is ripe for some conversation. So get loud in the comments, hit that big red button and subscribe so you don't miss my real recap and review for week 2 next week. It's gonna be a fun one, y'all. Alrighty guys, well, that's all I got. I'm gonna go relax now, and yeah, Francesca and that Damien situation got me really hot, okay? And I'm mad for Dom. I'm gonna go calm down. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.